Hey everybody, we are here with the Soul Purpose Project, and I'm very excited today to interview Bliss Prema. Bliss, it's so good to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. So before we get started, can you please just give us a little bit of information about who you are and what you do?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question, right? Well, my name is Bliss Prema. I was born with that name. My mom gave it to me when I was born. And Prema was given to me by Swami at an ashram. So who I am is actually what I try to be the most in the world, and that's to be bliss, which is happiness, and Prema means love. What I do for a day-to-day kind of thing is I'm a mother of two beautiful little goddesses, one 19-month-old and one 6-year-old. And so they keep me very busy at home, and I have a beautiful husband as well too, so that's lovely. What I have most recently stepped into is being an advocate of the human soul. So, in the past 15 years, what I've been doing is giving and teaching Indian head massages. I'm a Reiki master, and so I've been sharing the gift of Reiki with many people as well too, which is a way that you can heal yourself and others using energy. And I'm also the author of a book called The Conscious Evolver, which is an 8-step formula for people to be able to work through any aspects of their life that maybe isn't working so well for them or isn't necessarily positive. And to top it all off, I'm in the process of writing a memoir. So it's called I Am Bliss, Memoir of a Messenger. So that's something else that I've also just recently stepped into, is sort of owning that life mission of being a messenger. So I think that that might sum it all up.
That's a lot of things. So thank you for that. Now, can you tell us how would you define the words soul purpose? Like, what does that mean to you when you hear it?
That's a great question. Thank you. Um, I think I know I'm not alone in that. When I was very young, I felt a very strong purpose. I felt a very strong destiny. I felt this intense desire in me to get something accomplished, and I wasn't sure what that was. But whatever it was, it definitely has motivated me and pushed me forward my whole life. So for that, I'm very grateful. What I've come to learn about even just the word soul purpose is that it actually creates quite a bit of pressure on people, because we're born with this instinct that we need to bring something into this reality or become something of ourselves that's bigger than we can possibly imagine, but yet we're not sure what that is. And so as time goes on, if you're unsure of what that big soul purpose is, it can actually become self-defeating. Because if you can't find the answer, if it's not right there in front of you, and all of a sudden you're past your teens and in your 20s, and you still haven't found the big soul purpose, and then you're in your 30s, and then your 40s and 50s. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have been sobbing in front of me because they haven't found their soul purpose yet. So the big revelation actually happened for me when I was in Hawaii. My husband and my daughter, who was 3 at the time, decided to go camping on the beaches for 3 months. And it was while I was on the beach that I started to have this big fear that I wasn't contributing. And I realized that we have so much pressure on us to become something, to contribute, and to find our soul's purpose, that I actually just needed to peel away those layers and to kind of get rid of that pressure. And once I was down to kind of base zero, or what I call as a conscious evolver, after you deconstruct, you're in emptiness and void. And it wasn't until that I was there that I realized that I had actually accomplished my soul's purpose many, many, many times in my life. For example, graduating high school is a soul's purpose. I had gleaned all that information, and I had passed with great grades, and I had given everything up and moved to Whistler all by myself, and that was my soul's purpose at that time. And so, I mean, I can literally trace through all these different moments and experiences and decisions in my life where I'd actually accomplished and achieved my soul's purpose. But we're so hard on ourselves, aren't we? That we never give ourselves credit for that. So what I came to learn as a conscious evolver was that, you know, if you have a beautiful relationship with your mom or your dad, you've accomplished your soul's purpose. If you have a career that you love and you're super happy, that can be your soul's purpose. If you anything that's been a positive for your life, anything that fills you with love and makes you feel happy, that can be a soul's purpose. So in the Conscious Evolver, I call it higher purpose. Mm-hmm. And we can constantly achieve higher purpose. It can constantly, we're in this constant, evolution of attaining and being in a celebratory and victorious state of finding our soul's purpose.
Excellent. So it's not a static, sort of easily defined, two-sentence definition.
Well, but see, I think that's where things get kind of complicated. If you try to say the soul, and like the soul is this, well, first of all, complete mystery, right? But as I imagine the soul to be, it's this entire, like, vast, beautiful form of energy that connects us to every other life form here on the planet. And then to say that our soul's purpose can just be defined with one action or one choice or one decision, I think that that's really limited. And I believe that the soul is completely unlimited, right? So I think the soul's purpose is definitely constantly evolving. And I think that makes it a lot less pressure, to give ourselves credit for what we have achieved, but then it lets us continue to work forward to finding more soul purpose and higher purpose and another one, and just collecting all of that joy and victory and celebration into our little basket that we call the soul, right?
Love it. So then the next question that I have may not fit, but I'm going to ask it anyways and see what you think. So my question to you then is, do you know what your purpose is? Do you know what your soul purpose is?
Well, that's beautiful. Well, when you asked me at the beginning, what do I do and who am I and all that, I was able to slip in a few of my soul's purposes in there, right? So I was given a beautiful soul purpose with my name, and just the word bliss has a lot of really positive energy. So one of my soul purposes that I realized when I was younger was that by choosing to be a vessel of positivity had a really beautiful effect, and I could watch it rippling out to people just by smiling at them. It's like, just smiling is such beautiful medicine. And so I would say that as a child I recognized that was one of my soul purposes, was just to be a conduit of happiness and positivity, and to radiate that out as much as I possibly could. When I was in my teens, I decided that I really wanted to be, I wanted to help others. And so the education that I took and the work that I did, like the personal work, was all geared on helping others. So even though I didn't recognize it at the time, that was a soul purpose, which has then developed into my 20s and 30s as becoming a healer. So, in my teens, I would never have thought, oh my gosh, I've got my soul purpose, I want to help others. But now that I've matured, I can see that was the seed that I was starting to nourish, that has now bloomed into a pretty little flower.
Fantastic. So then, do you think that everybody has a soul purpose?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, though, I don't think it has to be something profound or dramatic, or it can be something as simple as, say a person in their past lives just hasn't been able to reconcile with a parent figure. And so their sole purpose in this lifetime is to learn how to forgive their parents, not necessarily condone an action that, that is awful, but perhaps just to be able to forgive them and to still send them love. maybe that's their soul purpose in this life. And so that could be the hardest thing in the world for them, but to actually be able to achieve that, how beautiful. That would be a beautiful soul purpose, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you give us a little bit more info on how you got clear on what your soul purpose is? Like what that process looked like for you. So, you gave a little bit of information about sort of the 3 months in Hawaii on the beach, which is beautiful. And can you elaborate a little bit more on kind of what that process was like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question, right? Because everything that I've said so far is that soul's purposes can be the most minute thing, and it can be the most profound thing. I'll talk about the messenger soul purpose because I think that one's one of the most fun ones to share right now. So when I was in my dreams, actually, let me backtrack one step. I'm a really, really strong dreamer. So from when I was a child, I've had very, very prolific and very vivid dreams. I noticed, I think when I was 4, that one of my dreams actually came true the next day. So I kind of was tapped into that was one of my gifts from a very young age. So when I was in my teens, I actually had a visit from angels in my dreams. And it was a lucid dream. And so for anyone that doesn't know what a lucid dream is a lucid dream is as real in that reality as it is in this reality, but you're actually aware of 2 different bodies. So you're lying in bed and you can feel your body in the bed, but yet you are also somewhere else and you can totally feel that realm too. So I had 3 messenger angels come visit me in my dream. So that was sort of my first clue of the word messenger. And year after year, somehow the word messenger would just keep coming to me in such a visceral way that it's hard to ignore. So, the way that humans have kind of treated messengers in the past has maybe not been so nice. If you think of, Joan of Arc or Jesus or John Lennon, I mean, we don't have a very good history of people that have a message when it comes to peace and love and happiness. So the concept scared me, it frightened me. So I'm 41 now. And I have to say, I've been asking the question probably a million times, like, okay, I get it. I'm a messenger, but what does my message need to be? And literally for 41 years, I've been unclear of how to be a messenger. And literally just a month ago, after I was doing a belly fit class, I asked for the millionth time, okay, universe, I'm here, I'm in service to you, what is my message? And for the first time, I actually heard, Bliss, your whole life is our message. And that's when it hit me that every experience that I've had that has been so traumatic and tragic and, with the ability to shatter my soul, that my ability to overcome it and still remain positive and happy and loving, that's my message. So that's an example. 41 years later, I finally had the aha moment. So I would say that in accompaniment with kind of listening to the signs and symbols and kind of having a clue that, something might be my soul purpose, that there was definitely an aha moment for me where everything finally came into alignment and I felt the strength and the courage and the determination in order to step into that soul's purpose and to say without any fear in my heart that I am a messenger and that I'm okay with that now. And it feels really good, to be so clear and to have this direction now, even though it took, almost 40 years to figure it out.
Beautiful. Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. So again, I'm not sure if these questions are necessarily like going to fit with the discussion around what soul purpose looks like for you specifically, but I'm going to try and ask them and just see what comes out. So in terms of your purpose, like knowing that you're like living in it, how do you know?
That's a really good question.
Everyone wants to know.
Yeah. Well, I've always been a believer of signs and symbols. One of the things that I was most clear on when I was young was to follow the signs and symbols. And the way that I kind of explain that is I imagine that there's our reality and then there's another reality, kind of like lucid dreaming, and that there's people on this other side that are 100% rooting for us and just support us and love us. So if you want to call it angels, ascended masters, your higher self, if you can call it whatever you want to call it. I believe in it all and none of them at the same time. But I just imagine that there's this team of people that are on this other side and they're rooting for me and they so want me to succeed. And so their way to communicate with me is by using signs and symbols. So I'm really, really consciously looking for them. And I find them in the simplest ways, but it always feels very magical, through nature, looking at numbers, license plates. It's that little conversation that comes out, that there's people walking beside you and you've just posed a question and they answer it. Or, somebody come out of nowhere comes up and just gives you exactly what you need at that moment. So when I feel like I'm in the flow of my soul's purpose, a lot of the signs and symbols are really obvious to me, and they really help guide me in my choices and my decisions as I flow through life. So that would definitely be a key, is that I really feel connected to the signs and the symbols when I am living in my soul's purpose. I would love to be able to say that it's a constant joy fest when you're in your soul's purpose, but I don't think that that would completely be realistic. I just recently videotaped the introduction to the book that I'm writing called I Am Bliss, Memoir of a Messenger, and so that was the first time that I clearly said that I'm a messenger. And also, too, I spoke very, very into camera that I want sexual abuse to end. I want domestic violence to end. And so that was a really big step. Not that I haven't spoken about it before, but never in such a big way. I've always wanted to share what's happened to me in my life, and I've been doing it a lot one-on-one. And always with the intention that if I could help just one person, heal what's happened to them, or to actually speak up and have that person sort of time, that was sort of my goal. So if this was really big for me. And so I would love to say that it was just easy, but it wasn't. For a week leading up to that, I went through every crazy negative emotion possible. It was really scary. It was a scary place to be, even though I knew that it was my soul's purpose. So yeah, it's not always a joy fest, but now in reflection, I look at where I was in that week before I released the video, and I was able to call out to my community. So there's a group of women that I've created, 10 years ago now, called the Goddess Gatherings. And there's 300 women in Vancouver, 100 women in Victoria, women in Ireland and Paris and Australia. So I was able to send out an email to our group and just say, hey, look, I'm really feeling low right now. I need support. And just to have all these beautiful women friend me on Facebook, send me emails, send me text messages, and just feeding me and feeding me and feeding me. And so, even though I felt like I was in a low, just to have all these beautiful souls just wrapping their arms around me and giving me love, that's being in the flow, of your soul purpose. Even though I didn't realize that at the time that there was even more lessons to be learned, while I was in the process. So, is that a good enough answer? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whatever's true for you is kind of the answer that we want, right? So thank you for that. Thank you very much for sharing. So here's one that comes up a lot. What do you feel is the impact as it relates to your finances and living in one's purpose? Like, do we have to choose between money and purpose? Or, what are your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of sort of conversation around this particular topic, and I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. These are really good questions, love. um, okay, I'll start. I'll just kind of backtrack a little bit because I think it's important. Um, some people might say that it's been easy for me to live in my soul's purpose because it just so happens that my husband works as a consultant and makes a phenomenal salary. So he has encouraged me to step into my soul's purpose. And so it's been lovely because I've been able to do that without any fear or negative reciprocal energy coming at me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been very fortunate. I also think that that's part of being in my soul's purpose, that I did attract someone that where I wouldn't ever have to worry about money. That being said, there's been quite a few times in our relationship, in our marriage, where I've actually encouraged him to not work because it's not healthy for him. And ultimately, what I would love is for both of us to be doing the healing work and the writing and the workshops because I feel that that's his soul's purpose as well as what he's doing. So we have been very fortunate financially, but because I am following my soul's purpose, there's always been money. Like it's never been an issue. When I was doing Indian head massages, they were booked 2 months in a row or 2 months in advance. So it's beautiful. Whenever I book a workshop, I'll just say to the universe, "Oh, universe, we need to pay for the babysitter and the studio. So it would be really great if we could have, one or two more people." And literally, like the day before the workshop, somebody will sign up. So I think it's all about trusting that you're in the flow as well too, and trusting that you will be taken care of when you are in service. So when we have gone away as well too, like the first time that it happened, Seamus was in a job that was very toxic. And so I created a mantra that basically was, universe, please remove Seamus from his job in a way that won't affect us negatively in our finances. Okay, so crazy random. Like basically I'm asking the universe to get my husband out of his job, but in a way that's not going to hurt us financially. But the thing about manifesting is that you don't worry about that. Oh my God, how is that actually going to happen, right? Because that's kind of inconceivable. Well, within 3 months, the whole company closed down and he got a massive severance. So, that was my constant mantra. That was my manifestation. And we took, this large sum of money and we went and we lived on the beaches in Kauai for 3 months. So even when he's not working as a consultant, we're still in the flow. We're still following our soul's purpose, and the universe is still taking care of us. And I trust in that so much. Like I really do, and I think that that's hugely important. So then the next time that he started getting into kind of like a toxic work experience, I put him on the couch and I just said, babe, this isn't working. You're not yourself anymore. And frankly, I don't really like you right now. You need to take some time off. And how are we going to afford that, of course, is his first question. And I said, well, let's look at our overhead. Our overhead is so high. We're living in a mansion in the Rocklands, which is like one of the nicest areas in Victoria, and our daughter goes to private school. And I'm like, let's just bring it all down. Like, let's deconstruct all that massive overhead. And so we made some really drastic changes in our life. And we moved to Sydney, and we got this, smaller house that's a third the price of our rent. And our daughter goes to public school now. And my husband was able to take off December, January, February, and March with all the money that we've saved. So it's trusting and relying on the universe, but also taking action and realizing that you don't need, fancy clothes, fancy house. That's not who defines us. That's not who we are, and that's not what makes us happy. What makes us happy is me being able to look at my husband and go, oh yeah, there's my hot Irish stud, that I love deeply. That, yeah, now he's back, and that's what's most important. So, money, finances, and being in your soul's purpose. I think you don't, if it's slow to start, just live accordingly. As Seamus says, cut your cloth to measure. So I started off renting a room in a house with 7 other people. And, that's what worked. And I was still totally abundant. So, I've had all the extremes, and I've definitely been like lucky. But I also believe that luckiness comes from honoring the universe, trusting the universe, and being in service to the universe.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Great. Talking about miracles, eh?
Right. Yeah.
So what's a decision or action that you took like consciously to get you on course that looking back you would definitely make again?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is just education, right? So I think the first part is to acknowledge that you have a need for something, or that you're resonating with something in particular. So for me, I was working as an agent in Vancouver. I had 100 actors on my roster that I loved. They were amazing. Things were really looking up. Like I was flying first class to New York and staying at the Trump Towers, and I mean, I was making a phenomenal salary. But I had a dream message that said, you're a great agent, but it's not your purpose. And so I had been doing yoga regularly, and I received an Indian head massage. And so when I received the Indian head massage, I knew right away that it was something that I wanted to do. It was magical, it was powerful, and it seemed less like a massage and more like a soul activation. And so right away it was like, okay, even though I'm loving what I'm doing and I'm successful at it, it didn't feel like 100% my soul was happy. Like I was very happy and I was very good at it, but I've always been very spiritual, and that aspect of my life was just sort of, the saying that I have is I had one foot in the boat of spirituality and one foot in the boat of like the material reality. And I really just needed to step entirely over to spirituality. So I got training. I learned where this girl was, or where she had gotten her training, and it was down in San Marcos in Guatemala. And so I gave my 2 months notice, and I used the money that I had been making, and I flew down to Guatemala, and literally met Seamus the next day and learned how to give the Indian head massage. I'd already gotten Reiki level 1. Seamus just happens to be a Reiki master, so I got Reiki level 2 with him while we were traveling. And then I realized that I loved being a yoga. I loved doing yoga, so I wanted to be a yoga teacher, so I went and got the training. So I think it's important that once you feel that calling, or you find something that you really love, that you just take it that step further, and you do receive the education and the knowledge and the training so that you can step out into the world and share what you love, right? Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right. So I think we touched a little bit on feeling encouraged by your community sort of just before you did the video promo, but in terms of that drastic sort of action that you took, 2 months notice, I'm changing careers, I'm going to a third world country, that's big. Did you feel encouraged or discouraged by your community in taking that action?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a really good question, because I had been fostering these 100 people, these 100 actors for 2.5 years, and I loved them all deeply, and I really felt that I had helped mold and sculpt them into even better versions of themselves. So it was definitely heartbreaking in a way to have to let them all know that I was moving on, but I think because I had fostered such good relationships with each and every one of them, that and that took a lot of work and time. I was very dedicated. But yeah, when it came time to actually moving on, like I still have all the cards that they wrote me, and I was just reading through them the other day, and they were all just really supportive. I think they could sense that there was more for me to do, and so they were obviously sad and didn't want me to go, but they all understood that it was time to go. So, my mom just wanted me to be safe, but she was used to me kind of leaving and going to third world countries by myself. So she was kind of used to that. But of course, any mother would be scared about that. Um, yeah, I would say that was really who my community was at the time, would be my actors. So yeah, I use the word heartbreaking just because it is so nice to have a community and you love them, but it's important to know that there's always going to be new community on the other side, and ones that are resonating with who you are, this new version of you. And so they'll be more like-minded and be able to share with you and teach you as well, so that it's reciprocal.
Beautiful. So, just a couple more questions, Bliss. But can you explain your perspective on the relationship to purpose and work? Can they be separate?
Okay, say that again.
Can you explain your perspective on the two concepts of work and purpose? Like, can they be separate?
Well, I think the world that we live in definitely wants them to be. The movie Divergent has that concept where everybody is in 5 different groups based on their personalities, and that seems like an easy way to allow people to have their work and their soul's purpose be combined, but it seems quite limiting at the same time, hence the Divergent, who has all 5 factors, right? Um, I, you know, I, I would. It's hard for me to say that because I've always followed my bliss, right? Um, it's always I've always stayed somewhere if I love it and moved on if I don't love it. So, for example, when I was in high school, I wanted to help others, so I decided I wanted to be a police officer. So I went to college and I got the training, graduated at the top of my class, so gung ho. Started working in the Vancouver Police Department doing 911. I was there for 9 months and I realized that it was not what I wanted at all. And so even though I was making great hour salary, like an hour, $25 an hour pay rate, that's amazing. First job out of college. It just wasn't feeding my soul. It was not where I was meant to be. So I left and I started for a .com company, and I got a mass amount of shares and a great salary. But a few years into that, I realized that wasn't me either. I wasn't business. That didn't work for me. And then I got the job as an agent, and I loved that, and I was good at that, but it wasn't quite it either. And then I became a yoga teacher and giving Indian head massages, and that was amazing. And then I realized I could go even further with that and become a teacher. So for me, I think that when you have, I think it's really important to merge your work with what you love, or else how are you going to maintain happiness? How are you going to do it, right? Like how do you keep a smile on your face? I don't think I can't live my life going 9 to 5 to a job that I feel my soul is dead. I just couldn't do it. And I would think that there's got to be someone out there that actually would love to do it, because that's what they love doing. And so here I am taking up space, not loving something that I do, when there's somebody out there that would actually really love to do it. So I think it's important to merge work with what we love to do. And if you're not happy, to keep moving and to always strive and work towards merging and finding what makes you happy and what you love. That's what I'm trying to get my husband to do, is to start working and doing what he loves too. Not that he doesn't love being a consultant. He's great at it, but wouldn't it be so much nicer if we just worked on weekends? Did I lose you there? There we go.
Where are you back just now?
Hi.
So last I heard was on weekends.
What's that?
Last I heard was you said, wouldn't it be nice if we just worked on weekends?
Yeah, so wouldn't it be so much nicer rather than him being gone for 11 hours Monday to Friday if we could do workshops together on the weekends and do one or two healings each a day and be able to spend the time with our children and with each other and out in nature, um, and just live that way rather than having to do something for this massive salary and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Bliss, thank you so much for sharing, all of your experience and your wisdom and your insights. So just last question, what message would you give to someone who's searching for their purpose, in terms of like advice or tips or just anything that you would like people watching this to know?
Yes, absolutely. What I would say is, let me just sort of focus on that for a sec. Yeah, don't despair. If you have that fire burning inside of you and you haven't found the big revelation or the big aha moment, to not let it become a pressure that can turn into a negative energy for you. Try to use that energy as a force that propels you forward and follow your bliss. Look for things that make you happy and follow that. That's a really good sign and symbol. And to just not despair. If it takes, a little while, um, don't give up. But also to give yourself a little bit more credit for what you have achieved and you have accomplished in your life, and to maybe take some time to reflect on what you have gone through in your life and to give yourself some positive encouragement for the higher purposes that you have achieved so far. So, what are the positive things that you have achieved? High school, good relationships, good friendships, doing things that you love, your positive attitude, anything like that. Just make sure that you're giving yourself credit for achieving those higher purposes and allowing yourself to be in that moment of celebration and victory, and to hold on to that moment as well too, to hold on to that energy as well too. And just that my belief is that the soul has many purposes and that the soul is very vast. So to try not to contain it into one sole purpose that is this big deal, that there's lots of room for lots of purpose in that beautiful soul of yours.
Aw, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Bliss. Great, great stories and memories and insight and messages and all the things. Really, really appreciate your time and your energy and contributing to this project. Um, so if one wanted to get more information on Indian head massage or Reiki, where's the best place to find you, or your book also?
So for Indian head massage, Reiki, and the Conscious Evolver, you can go to my website, blissprema.com. And the book is forthcoming, but there is a pre-order page at iambliss.ca. So if you want to pre-order the book, that would be lovely as well too.
Fantastic. Again, thank you so much, Bliss. What a pleasure.
You, yeah, absolutely. I love you. You're awesome, babe.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Take care.